the effect.
No one would expect anything different.
Could be. Welcome to Deal With It. I'm here with Mr. Sean Dice with Rice, never changing that, ever. And I am
Never.
the oldest man of 40K, Brad Chester, currently looking for chapstick because my lips are falling off, but we're going to just figure that out. We're going to talk about some space dwarves. You know what? I don't care that they're League of Votaan. In my mind, they will always be space dwarves, and I have a box of miniatures from like 23 years ago to prove they existed. We got some stuff to talk about. They might be top 3 most improved. Would you agree with that from the data slate?
I think so. I think it really gave them like a direction to go in. Just saying, here's your guns, point them at these things. And here's some more stuff to do it with.
There's some more stuff to do it with. Love it. Let's talk about how we're going to deal with it. As usual, we deal with it with our 5 steps, which is preparation, one of the biggest ones for me, identify strengths and weaknesses, making a plan, practicing that plan over and over and over, and then from your practice, making adjustments, which is such a big deal. And remember, as always, you can't make ridiculous adjustments. You have to have a core of your army, and then you adjust from there. Especially with Votaan, you don't have a whole lot of things, so you don't want to be throwing everything out.
Yeah, if you change your Votan list a few times, I don't even know where you'd end up. All Hearthkin, the 18 bikes.
Ooh, all Hearthkin. So, well, let's go down. Let's talk some stuff. Let's talk luck has, need keeps, toil earns. Fucking you, Votan. Whoa, oops. I got a, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going down to preparation now. John, tell me about all 11 units that I have and what they do.
This is a good point. If you're a Votan player, come on, you got to know your 11 units. And yes, I say 11 units. Uther is not real. Do not take Uther. He is worse than a call in every single way. Just play him as a normal call.
I love that you said Uther is not real.
Yeah. He's not real. He's a fancy call in your army. And someone asks, is that Uther? No, that's his brother Gruther. He's just a normal call.
My brother Gruther.
Yeah, that's just what it is. So the big thing with Votan is if you've only got 11 real units, you should probably know what they do. And what this allows you to do is when you're thinking about, hey, what kind of terrain am I playing on? What are the rules going to be? How are they going to rule different interactions? You already know them all. You already know them. You got 11 units. We're not over here with Codex Space Marines and 234 units or whatever ridiculous number Brandon keeps telling me, and I keep going, yeah, but half of them are leaving. You don't have to worry about all of them. You got 11. So this is it. This is the holdout units that you are saying, hey, what do these actually do in my army? You've got your characters. You got your call, your Ironmaster, your champion, and your psyker, which Brad and I talked about before the show. Boo on psykers.
Dwarves don't have psykers, damn it. Give me my anvil back.
Yeah, I want my runes. I want my runes of power. But as Brad and I would go on forever about how fantasy dwarves are awesome, this is space dwarves. You got to know your characters. You don't have that many. Basically, these characters you're going to decide, are they going to be part of a trading piece unit, i.e. your Hearthkin, or are they going to be part of your like anvil type damage dealing unit, the Hearthguard? And, then yes, we have the Ironmaster. Surprisingly, the Brokier guy is going to go with the Brokier Thunderkin and give them buffs. Not a whole lot of real work you have to put in to figure that out. That's just where they go. Then you have your basic trading pieces. You got your basic dwarves. You got your Hearthguard, as I said, your damage dealers. And then you've got transports. And Brad likes the Berserkers. I think the Berserkers went down points, but they're not awesome. And that's going to round off your total pool of available units.
I do have to state that Hannah, who plays Votaan, and just played them this weekend, by the way, doing a Votaan stream while I'm at work, the injustice, judgment on you, judgment on your cow.
Yeah. Sorry, Anna. This is just the dwarves come, and sometimes you aren't prepared for it.
No. Well, let's talk about with the preparation what we're going to do here. So we're going to talk about preparation, and we're going to talk about some of the combos we have. Uh-oh, Peaches Destroyer shooting up with a $5 super chat.
Right.
Space dwarves, you say? I'm pretty sure they'd be great drinking buddies with my space wolves. But aside from that, how do I challenge the long fang for best space wolves? Show up to Michigan GT, bring some alcohol, and you will play in the doubles. And then you can play myself and Kramer in a Space Wolf on Space Wolf. And also, we are bringing 18 Thunderwolves and all the named Thunderwolf characters and Thunderwolf Wolf Lords. It's a thing.
I'm excited just hearing that. I love Thunderwolf so much.
It's fantastic. So let's talk about some of the combos here, because they do have some serious synergy in their list. Now, let's back up just a little bit, though. And we talk about combos. Let's talk about the things that they did buff. You now get to throw double tokens or grudges on 4 different units now, which is bonkers town to start the game. Makes a very big difference. But you do have to figure out what you actually need, because I have seen people talk about this, and what happens is you start putting on grudge on things that you kind of just don't need grudges on. So you have to watch out for what's already going to be just grinding tokens anyways from you, and what you're actually going to need tokens on. And a lot of times that's actually a little bit different than you think, because sometimes you need those early tokens on something that you need to delete and have away from you. Know that's either going to be forward deploying or forward moving. And those are the easy ones where you just know something's going to be in front of you, or it's going to be something hard to deal with. But then you have to make that decision. I think that 2 auto go, you kind of always know where they're going, but you have to, I think that you may have to take a little bit more time before you start throwing those down and think about the combos that you're putting together, and then go, okay, I have this combo. Where do I need those tokens on? Do I need a token on something that I feel that I'm going to try to hit in their backfield later in the game? That's a real thing, because a lot of times you're not getting tokens on those things. So maybe you want to start with that, and you're actually planning so far ahead for a turn 3 drop after you, again, with all armies, when you're talking about your deep strikes, your just reserves, your strat reserves and everything else, you have to start carving out that spot where you want to come in. You can't just hope your opponent leaves you a spot. You need to grind that spot the hell out. And that's a big deal with this army, because the combos work if you get to put your pieces in the right spaces.
100%. And they did take this balanced approach towards Votaan as, hey, we're basically going to give your army +1 to hit, +1 to wound where it matters, and we're just going to drop your points. And it turns out any army can kind of be made playable, as we'll see getting to the list later, if you just give the army +1 to hit, +1 to wound, and drop their points by 20%. Turns out you can just do that to make an army perfectly fine. Who would have thought? But yeah, as we'll get into some how you practice with Votaan, that Brad hit the nail on the head. That is exactly what you need to do. Carving out space for your Hearthguard to drop in, or your Thunderkin to walk in from the side. Crucial to playing this army.
Thunderkin walking in from the side. Don't put them on the board. Makes my head hurt. Sorry, they're so slow. Uh-oh. Garrett coming in with the super chat. Okay, hear me out. 6x9 Nurglies, 6x 10 pinks, 2x 10 Playbearers. You just random demons out of nowhere in the middle.
someone really that's a Gretchen, Garrett. This is dwarf time. Demons, dwarves. We're talking about dwarves right now.
You just got your name put in the book of grudges. I do think that would be super annoying. If you're going to go that annoying, don't even take pinks. Just spam the board with even more stuff.
Yeah, I do like Garrett. This is something that if you've been talking to Kyle Treya, Kyle blasts me with all sorts of demon lists. This is one that he definitely wants to play, not because he thinks it's particularly awesome, but because it's just so annoying.
Well,
like your win condition is your opponent just decides, I'm tired of this, I'm going home.
Well, let's get it more exactly what it is. I talked to Kyle this morning, and the quote was, if I'm going to be sad, I want everyone else to be sad.
Yeah, 54 Nurglings will make somebody sad. Probably both players sad at one point.
Like, no one gets to move.
100%. Yeah, we just basically stand here. Null game. But back to what... thank you, Garrett. Back to the dwarves. This is what Anna wants. So we have to give Anna what she wants. Brad hit that preparation and combo slide. These are the combos you need to know. Again, we only got 11 units. There are some combos you can do, but I don't include just like one guy moving over and doing a thing is really a combo. So the first one we have here is, yes, it does take Hearthguard, you put a call with them, and you use the sustained hit strat to just delete units. Now, this is a nombo in a way. Yes, your call is going to give your devastating win within lethal hits, but it's just the volume, the sheer volume of attacks you can put out with this one unit means that you can basically pick anything in the game and say, you're going to be extremely hurt or not there on my turn, especially since I'm going to be deep striking in. And if I make this 9-inch charge, I will make sure you are not there.
This one, however, I love it, but you know how I feel about expensive things. You know, it's a cooler thing that doesn't cost as much. Brokir Ironmaster plus 6 Thunderkin with anti-vehicle 2 hits on 3s without the judges. Oh yeah, they can also just not die and heal themselves. And my rule of thumb is if you have an anti-keyword, you're probably going to make it into my army because anti-words are broken and they're nuts.
So good. Oh man, just breaks the game basically.
And the other thing is like, you know what I really like? The fact that you can put in Hearthkin, you know, plus the Sagittars, so you can break these guys up. Because you need to be able to trade, take objectives. You don't want to be sending your most expensive stuff. And that is one of the weaknesses of Votaan is they have a hard time trading with other people's trash units. So especially early game when someone puts their 20, 30 point thing on an objective. So you have to have a little bit of something because you definitely don't want to walk up there with a Fortress or a Hearthguard unit to take away that 30-point Crude Hound unit, you know.
Yeah, not exactly effective.
Pete just coming in with a super chat. Hey, I've got a newborn and 5-year-old. I'm already having to fight like rabid wolves. I'll have to take a raid check. Also, where do I join the Discord? I will make that happen right now. Bam. It should pop up. Nightbot, don't fail me. Don't make me a liar, Nightbot. There we go. It was just tired. So
it's tired of Brad all the time. Can you imagine Nightbot having to deal with Brad all the time?
I mean, it's well, I just assume that Nightbot's basically just me sending Brit something and asking her to do
it. Oh man. Oh, Brad, you're telling on yourself now. All right, so yeah, you don't want to trade your Hecaton land fortress for Crude Hounds. That's terrible. That's where we get to, you know, where Brad's talking about. You can take a Grimnir, you can throw it with some Hearthkin. You can take more than one Grimnir and throw it with some Hearthkin. They're going to have a 4-up invuln. They're going to be +1 toughness. You run them out there. They're fairly cheap. Now, this is Votaan we're talking about. They started at, we'll see in the weaknesses, way astronomically overcosted. They're not that anymore, but, you know, you're trading, you know, 75 plus what the Grimnir, 50. You're trading about 100 points on the objective, and that's easier than trading your massive land fortress. So that's why I say this is a combo, because you're putting durable OC2 in a point. You're saying, get these Crude Hounds out of here. This point is mine. And that's something that Votaan didn't really have the points to do previously.
True story on that. Talk about the champion. I think he's actually undervalued, to be honest with you. Champ's pretty sweet.
Yeah, so he does provide, a little bit of melee. We're not here to, reinvent the wheel of Votan and say 30 berserkers and a bunch of champions. But yeah,
30 berserkers.
Brad has been very excited about. He's like, berserkers at 100 points. Oh man! But no, the champion, his main role, and it's kind of funny, is to hold an enhancement. With Grim Demeanor, that lets them ignore mods for his Hearth guard unit when they drop in. Turns out when you just get +1 to hit and wound, and your opponents can't get any minuses to you, you just start hitting things on 2s and wounding on either 3s or 4s. And then if it just so happens to have something else there alive, he gives you reroll charges. That's big because you want to be spending your CP on, I don't know, Void Armor, that's Armor of Contempt, or
Seems
on
better.
Ancestral. I'm blanking here. I'm sorry,
Might.
people. Exploding, it might. Exploding 6s. You want to be spending your CP on that and not having to spend it to try to make a charge. Pretty awesome in the army that, moves 5 inches most of the time. And we'll get to more on some of the Votan weaknesses.
Let's go. We're doing that. We're going there now. I'm doing strengths because you have to be the bad parent.
I know. I'm always bad cop.
Strengths. Grudge tokens, ignoring cover, sustain hits 2 strat. Their offense is so much better now because you have, one, you just have more shit on the board, which just gives you more dice, but now you have more grudges. Fantastic. Respectable defense. You've got a lot of 2-up saves and void armor. Again, armor contempt is a hell of a drug. I mean, it's just straight up good. You've got a straightforward playstyle in the fact that you have good saves in your tanks. You can literally just pick up your opponent's models. Again, we have to figure out what we want those pre-game tokens on and things of that nature. And this army is also, for me, this army is a shoot the middle, take the flanks type of army. It has strengths. It has a solid play style that you're looking at. And it's you can get a good game plan all the time because, again, you have limited amounts of units that you can choose from. So you have that plan. And then we have British Dad telling me about the weaknesses.
Yeah, these dwarves, as you'd expect, they have some stubby legs, and they're kind of slow. That means you are really reliant on your transports to get where you need to go. All those trading pieces, I talked about earlier. How are we getting there? We're probably taking Sagittars. Like, we got to have our Sagittars to do it, and Sagittars are awesome. Sagittars are cheap, but as we also mentioned, people really like anti-vehicle keywords, and there's a lot of them. So if your transports go down, you're just kind of stuck wherever you landed. And that's not a good feeling, especially when your opponent knows that going in. Then on top of being slow, generally your weapons are short range. So on player-placed terrain where there's these long firing angles, normally as a shooting army, that'd be awesome for you. Votan, though, really going to struggle sometimes. I know personally, if I was going to play against Votan with, I don't know, pointy ears, I would go, Bright Lance, 36 inches. Votan gun, 24 inches. I'll just
not
be over
36 inches.
here. Yeah, I'll just be over here. So keep that in mind as you're playing Votan. We'll get into the making a plan part of it. You really need to plan out where you're going to be because there's no going back. You're kind of engaged where you're engaged, and that's where the fight's happening. Then this is more of a certain armies have this problem and certain armies don't. Consistency and damage. Yes, you have exploding 6s, but sometimes the dice are going to roll real bad, and Votan has a distinct lack of rerolls to help with that problem.
Which also, that is the one bitch I'm going to make about this. GW, why do certain armies have rerolls yes, and other armies have reroll no? It's not even just even remotely even. You either have all of the rerolls or none of the rerolls. Sorry.
Yeah, and that less rerolls, suddenly Oath of Moments. And they just decided less rerolls for the not for me, basically with this army, and that's okay. As we get to the final weakness, they were extremely overcosted. Are they still overcosted?
Why you gotta bring up old shit?
Yeah, maybe just a little bit, but we're way better off than we were. So I just want to throw that out there as time will tell on if we are slightly overcosted or not.
Let's talk about my favorite thing, making a plan. Make a plan, and make a plan is before the game, in list construction, against what you're playing against, and also you have to revisit that plan during the game always. I consider the fact that I like to say you're doing it every turn, but you really want to have your plan going into the game, and then you reevaluate it bottom of 2, top of 3 to make sure you're scoring the max points. And that's a big deal in the fact that you need to make sure that you're not making bad trades. So we don't have trash in Votaan to just keep throwing out. So you need to be dealing damage, but you want to be dealing damage over the course of the game. And that means that you need to know what you have to trade and what sometimes you're just going to let somebody have something. And that's why you have to have that plan and you have to know what your score is. So what are the things that I want to have in my army? Things like Sagittars, fast, cheap units, letting us get to places, giving us the option to trade with things. The Pioneers, the only thing that we have that goes in. The bikes, basically the fastest thing on the board that's not just a Sagittar. So you can do secondaries with them. And the thing is with these, when you're talking about your plan, it's important to bridge the gap between deploying unbelievably defensively where you can't get to things, because we do have some lack of speed, which means sometimes you're going to get lack of angles, but then you can't just deploying on the line and being too aggressive either. So you always have to kind of be on the knife's edge of where you need to be, because I want to have units alive over the course. You need to get your value out of these Votaan units, which means that what I said earlier, you need to be hitting flanks very hard in that battle plan. What are we doing with these things? We're going to go into practicing with it on it. And it's a big deal on that, because you want to make sure that you're getting value. Those Hearthkin, I mean, cheap when you split them in the Sagittars. Zerks, they're not that cheap.
You did pick up on that. Thank you, Islile. I am not the most efficient sometimes, and copy paste got ahead of me there.
I was like,
thank you for
I'm
that.
like, Zerks they're cheaper, but they don't split. But Hearthguard, of course, teleport crest. You can basically do some damage all around the board. And again, it's that plan, and you have to do that profit loss statement. The pros and cons of every time you're moving around the board and trading with somebody, you have to go, if I go here and kill this, what is going to kill me back in return? And that's a big deal when you're playing Votaan, because I want to pick on specific sides. You want to focus, especially if you're playing a lot on new GW terrain, you're playing on player place terrain, you got to set that up. A lot of time, especially with Votaan, I'd like that middle open and I want my flanks closed, because I want to be able to punish one thing and get very little in return. I can't stop all of the shots, but I can mitigate a lot of the shots. So, and that's a big deal, because again, you want to have that volume over the course of the game. And they do have a lot of dice. So that's just a huge deal in looking at these. And you have to know your battlefield role with these things. Just because the Sagittars are fast things that trade doesn't mean I want to just throw them away. You know, where can I put this and hopefully get another turn of doing things? I want to make it basically every time you're making a move here this applies for most armies, but especially with armies that have lower model count and lower speed, you want to be making the most annoying possible move for your opponent every time. So where can I be that my opponent's going to be super annoyed with me? And that's what I want.
Yeah, because we're not saying just, take Sagittars to take Sagittars, or just take Sagittars so you can throw them out onto things. Sagittars actually are a good gun platform. You are not trying to just lose all your Sagittars right away. You are trying to use them in a way to enhance your speed, to make plays happen. As we were going to get to, and you can see one of the key units are your teleporting Hearthguard. That is how you're going to kind of set up the game. And as Brad said, you're going to move in with Sagittars, set up, and then drop in and I would say bring the anvil, but we don't get anvils here.
Boo.
So you're going to just bring the punishment. Tell them it's a Gretchen. Hit them +1 to hit, +1 to wound, exploding 6s, lethal hit, dev wounds, And your Sagittars are how you enable that play, because you got to get your opponent out somehow.
And I want to go to practice. If you got to go into, Sean and I played a practice game on the Patreon Discord stream last Thursday. And when you're practicing, it is so important to be communicating with your practice partner, because you can get their opinion, and also it helps with learning how they would react to your certain moves too. Well, if I do this, they're like, well, this actually opens a play up for me, even though, you're thinking this. So it's important that you run through it. I mean, we played 2.5 turns. How many resets were I in double digits minimum?
Yeah, I mean, that's basically how you should practice.
Yeah.
It really confused some people watching, but that's what we mean. We mean be efficient as, and I even said this to some of the Patreons who were watching. Brad and I are not going to play a full game, or we are going to reset several times. And why are we doing that? You cannot physically play enough games of 40K to get every different minutia and every different setting down. That's even more true now when there are, 18, 20 different mission combinations. So you need to be able to be communicating with your opponent, changing things up, changing on the board. If you don't ever leave turn 2, I'm telling you right now, that's okay. Because once you make the correct decision, or you figure out what it is, you don't really need to go so much further than that, because you're already going to know what to do. I mean, you're already going to know, this is my game plan. This is how I practice it. I know what the correct decision is here. I'm going to make it and then see what my opponent does, and I should be good to go after that.
100%. And the thing is that you have to go down the line and look at your target priority and token placement, or actually 2 separate things on that too. So you have to do really well with both of them. And because it's going to just multiply, your damage is multiplicative with that. You know what I mean? Those bumps up. So it's really important to know what you're shooting at. And also, again, you have to have that double down. Things have to go away, but always shoot the things. And this is basic for a lot of people, but it's huge for Votaan. It's huge for a lot of armies. To make sure you're firing in the right order, you're firing at the things that have to die first, and also you're not leaving yourself with dumb shots. Because I see over and over and over again, a lot of times people will have set up and they'll shoot out of order, and then their second thing they're shooting, because they wanted to make sure that they had redundancy, well, it only can shoot at something that really it's not going to do anything to, or at least not going to do anything that's relevant to the game. Because again, as always, how am I scoring points? How am I denying points? How am I setting up for the next turn? That's what I think every single time I touch a unit. That's what I need to be able to do. So you have to think that, and it's very important with that. Again, we're a limited model count army with Votaan, so you have to be getting the maximum efficiency with everything that you're touching, and you have to practice with that, though. It's very important to practice your token placement and your target priority when you're practicing with your Votaan.
Yeah, this is a big thing to do, and this is I'll give you exact examples. If you're practicing with Votaan, ask your opponent, hey, what are you afraid of me putting grudge tokens on? And you will get so much information about everything that they're trying to accomplish just by saying, yeah, I don't want you to get +1 to hit and wound against this unit. And I don't want you to just get extra CP if you put it on this unit and move here. You're going to get a lot of value on that every time you play, even after you finish a Votaan game. Even just ask your opponent, hey, do you think I put my grudge tokens right? And a lot of, I haven't met anybody in this game who's like, no, I'm not going to tell you. I'm not going to talk to you after this game. We just played for 3 hours. And part of that is, once you have this conversation about grudge tokens, say, hey, if I started these Hearthguard off the board, would that have changed how you played this game? If you knew that these Thunderkin had the option to come walking in off the side and shoot at things, does that change where you move? So that's just 2 direct examples of how you can change your Votaan practice to get more value out of it.
And one of the big things is when we talk about what's the plan, and bullying the midfield doesn't mean that you just stand in the mid, because standing in the mid sometimes is basically standing there underneath the comical Warner Brothers cartoon X waiting for the safe to drop on you. a lot of times taking the midfield means taking those middle objectives, whether it's Dawn of War, whether it's Hammer and Anvil, even whether it's any of the diagonals. You basically hit those flanks, hide behind that terrain, murder things, take those objectives, and give yourself. It's always, again, pre-measure, pre-measure, pre-measure. Make sure you have just enough movement to make sure you can see the middle. Make the middle where people go to die. Make those big, because most of the terrain, and I'm going off a lot of GW terrain now, the GW sets, but you can set this up on your player place too. Set up those even UKTC terrains like that too. They have, you want to make sure that you have those good firing arcs where you can pick up anything that's on objective. So when you're flanking, effectively most of your stuff's going to be in charge of just 2 objectives. You can't be everywhere. If you go everywhere, especially with limited model count, you're not going to be anywhere. Your opponent's literally going to focus fire you down. And that's one of the biggest mistakes I see in a lot of armies, not just Votaan, but it's very punishing when you make a mistake and you try to be too many places at once.
Yeah, and that's, if we could break it down, real quick on it, bullying the midfield is not my guys are there. It is you don't want to go there. As long as your opponent feels like they don't want to be in the middle, you're bullying the midfield. It doesn't matter if all you have is 5 Hearthkin and a Grimnir. If they don't want to go out, you are bullying the midfield. And if you have put them in that position, you are playing this army correctly.
100% on that. Let's talk about making adjustments on that, because this is a big deal on that. Don't force yourself into the list. We say this every time on Deal With It. Make it your own. But with Votaan, it's hard to not be in the list a little bit because we don't have as many choices. So again, it's a big deal of what you have to work with. Again, lean into your strengths. Don't try to make yourself stronger where, again, don't make your list 5% better against something and 20% worse against everything else. It's very, very important. And I think that with everyone, but especially Votaan, you have to have proper deployment. I would say that deployment in your first turn are the most important things in the entire game for every army, but it's especially big when you have an army that doesn't have a lot of trash pieces. So you have to make good decisions about where you start the game and where you're going to be. And that's bigger. Where you're going to be is actually way more important. So you need to deploy in that vein of looking at it, especially if you're playing a lot of player place terrain. To be honest with you, when you're playing player placed, you have to set your terrain up to where I want to be later, not just deployment. I see people all the time, hey, I can't get shot in my deployment zone. Cool, you're going to be in your deployment zone for 1 turn. So you know what I mean? So get out of there. It's very, very big. Yes, targeters were hilarious when no one else could measure but you. Yes, that is a real thing. So, but go ahead, John. We'll rock with this.
Yeah. That's so when you're making your Votaan list, don't, I am someone who often likes to take something different, something very different, mainly because I feel like it gives me a little bit of an edge when my opponent's a little unprepared. If you are someone who likes to do that, but you love Votaan, do not stress out if you are taking the same units as everyone else. That is not on you. You only have 11 units. Some of them only do one thing. They might do that one thing really well, but don't stress. This Brad mentioned, we say this every time on Deal With It. You do not have to play any one list. You can find success with several different lists. But if every list has pioneers, that doesn't mean you just can't take pioneers or you shouldn't take pioneers. It's just you should consider them. You should consider what they do for you and your strategy and how you like to play, for example, Votaan. And we mentioned it all the way through. This is small people have short legs, and I can't seem to get there. Brad hit the nail on the head. You have to deploy exactly where you need to go, and it does not always mean just hiding. When you're starting out and you're learning competitive 40K, usually the advice you get is, well, just hide everything. As you start to play more, you'll realize, I really can't hide this one guy because he needs to be in this spot. And if they just move out and shoot me, I just have one unit that can trade back with them. And that's okay. But if you just hide everybody behind the ruins as Votaan or Death Guard, for example, it's going to be really hard to get where you need to go in the later game.
You have to throw out Carbona's suggestion to you. Sean, you need to offset yourself from your logo or change it to be viewable on your massive Bieber shoulders. I want to be forced to check out your page because of brand bombardment.
Thank you, Carmona. Yeah, if you can't see a Dice with Rice on YouTube, you can just check me out too. We also have all these here, so if you ever miss a stream, they're always there.
And it's also live there right now.
Also, yes, we're also live at the same time.
Technology.
The wonders of the modern world.
You want to jump into a list?
Yeah. Let's just jump into the list
because we can talk about what's going on. Well, sorry, my bad. That's a lie. We got to deal with it first. We got to go down the 5 steps, and then we'll go. So we already talked about these a little bit. We kind of jumped ahead on it. With preparation, you need to know your combos back and forth. You have very few amount of units, so you need to know exactly what everything does. Your strengths and weaknesses are a big thing, and it goes hand in hand with making your plan, because you, again, don't want to be trying to do things that your army doesn't do. As always, look at what your army strengths are, mitigate your army weaknesses, but you can't play into, if your army doesn't have a million bodies, well, you're just not going to be able to screen out sometimes in certain positions. I don't care what tries to deep strike into hammer and anvil backfield in the corner. Just deal with that happening. Take the middle, dominate that middle field. It's very important that you don't get into trying to do things that your army actually doesn't do. Make sure you've got the range. Make sure you can exchange on objectives. Votaan is a very difficult army in the fact that they're fairly close range, but they don't want to be right on top of you. They can't be too far away. They have to be just right. They have to be the 3 bears on that. The third thing of porridge is always what you want. So it's important when we're identifying strengths and weaknesses and making that plan, that your plan goes with strengths, not just trying to worry about just weaknesses. I'm not saying completely ignore them, but you have to lean into your strengths as opposed to worrying about the weaknesses of an army that you can't fix it with.
100%. That's taking advantage, knowing your weakness so that you can best exercise your strength. Weakness, I'm slow. Strength, I hit like a dump truck.
Yeah, Oz does have it right. Don't forget to hit the like and hit the bell, because these guys will start a stream out of nowhere. I don't know whose fault that is, guys. There's nobody that's in charge of things that makes that happen quite frequently.
Yeah, definitely. If you've heard the phrase wrangling cats, whoever came with that phrase had never met Brad. Wrangling Brad is 1 tier higher.
But it's a big thing on this, that it is, Carmona, and the thing is it's a decent amount of bodies, but it's not like an endless swarm. You don't have trash to throw everywhere. You can make a little bit of a different list on this, but I really think that they have a middling amount of bodies in the best list. You know what I mean? For me, that again, this is just our opinion on this. And after the plan and the strengths and identifying strength and weakness and making that plan, you have to practice. I cannot stress enough, practicing deployment first turn, but where you're putting your tokens and your target priority. And then every army struggles with, except for Eldar, with where to use your CP.
We don't say that name here.
Yeah, wrangling Brad is worse than wrangling cats in a rainstorm when they're on coke. Can't deny. So it is a big deal, though. There's a lot of things that can make this army feel unbelievably powerful, but you have to be in the right position all the time. You have to be able to keep that distance. It's important to, again, I can't stress it enough. I say it to everybody. If you're coached by me, you know that I will never shut up about it. Pre-measure, pre-measure, pre-measure. You have to know exactly how far. You have to get to the objective, have to get to see those firing lanes. You know what I mean? It's important that you know exactly where your opponent can go, where you can go to counter, and that you can get on the objective, or that you can at least get line of sight to the objective. Sometimes just killing somebody off, like we were saying earlier, just make the middle objective a lot of time where people go to die. I want that to be the kill box. There should be dead bodies piled up. murder that. You are great at killing people. Votan with 4 people with double judgment tokens is no joke even at the start of the game. You're like, yeah, man, see that guy with double tokens? Would you like, I invite you to stand in that open objective in the middle. Nothing bad will happen, I swear.
Yeah, and I did want to touch on that because I put the point in there. Once you have done this, make sure you're actually following up. And that is the moment where you plant on the objective. Maybe you're dropping in with Hearthguard and you say, I'm here, I've got a 2-up save, I'm T6 or better, and I've got Armor of Contempt. You have forced them away, you've gained some advantage, you've taken out some units, and now you're saying, this is the game. You're playing the game I want to play. And sucks for you, I may only move 5 inches, but I'm here now, and you have been scared away. Now I'm going to make my stand. Here it is. Here's all my damage.
100% on that. Now, and the thing is with, we talk about this a lot, and I will always stand on this, making adjustments. Making adjustments are small adjustments. You're always making small adjustments. You have a core concept, and you make adjustments from there. You can't solve, you need to solve for X. You don't need to solve for the entire alphabet. You have to make small adjustments, talk through, and a lot of times that goes with your practice games, everyone. Ask your opponent, just talk about it during the game. Hey, I've been back and forth on an extra Sagittar or an extra kin unit. You know what I mean? What would that feel for you in this game? What would you feel would be a little bit tougher for you? How would that adjust things? And then talk about that. You know what I mean? It's very important to make sure, give your opponent, you're not even your opponent, your practice partner, give them a chance to help you. Help me help you.
That's exactly right. I mean, you need to have good communication, and that's part of making adjustments. You need to be able to say, "Hey, what am I doing here?" You can ask in practice. I would not always recommend doing that in a tournament game because someone might mislead you, but practice games, get all the questions out of the way. Don't be afraid to ask them.
Oh, I'm showing this. This image will be on Thursday, Peaches. I love everything about this model that he sent. Again, it's a random thing, but I like to showcase people's models. Don't be afraid to put them up in the Discord, and I like to showcase them on Thursdays. So if you've got something you're working on that you're proud of, or you just think it's cool, throw it to me. I'll put it up on Thursday and run through it. Let's talk about this sample list. I'm going to let you run through it.
All right. So this list did go 5-0 into GT. Whoever it is, I'm sorry. I could not distinguish between a name and a place. And I did not want to wrongly say someone's name. But you can find this on VCP. There aren't a whole lot of people going 5-0 with Votaan. First, we've got the Call. He's got the Devastating Wound Gun. He's got the Mass Gauntlet. He's got his Rampart Crest, so he's at least going to give invulns. And this unit is going to pair, as you see, the Champion and the Call are going to pair, like I said, with those Hearthguard. Then we have the Brokir Ironmaster, who is going to be handing out Judgment tokens when he comes in with the Brokir. You've got the Einherjar Champion, basic loadout, and Grim Demeanor, as we said, is going to let you ignore mods. So you drop in, you've got Armor of Contempt, you've got +1 to hit and wound, and they've got nothing. We have 10 Hearthkin Warriors, which I think are going to start being a staple in every Votaan list, mainly because you can take Sagittars, split them up, and then have 2 units that can go out and trade. They can sticky an objective. Basically, they can just do everything that you need to do in a Votaan army that you couldn't do previously because you had to either focus on damage or focus on scoring a few points before you got tabled. Then we have the Sagittars. I think every list probably should run some Sagittars. Sagittars have a great weapon in the high las, and some other piddly shots. I don't really count on the twin bolt cannon to get anything done, but
Bolt's still like rolling a lot of dice, man.
It's still dice. I mean, you just roll some dice, and if it happens, it happens. Sweet. Your Sagittar only cost 100 points. It's doing its thing. As I said, we got the 6 Brokir with the anti-vehicle 2+ weapon. I would include, this is personally for me, I would take this unit no matter what. Having played with anything with anti anything is just felt so good. And the fact that you can take your Iron Master, you stick him in there, suddenly they're hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s. Oh my gosh, it's just so much damage just piling up on your opponent.
Plus, he's also got my favorite enhancement. Not because of what it does, just because of the name of it. It should just be disappointing glare is what it should be. However, you've got your 20 Hearthguard, which makes me have heart palpitations immediately. Oh, so expensive.
Yeah, this is the anti-Brad unit. Brad may be small, but he is he doesn't want to be tough. He wants to be small and squishy. Squishy and useful. He wants every unit to do its thing. Honestly, I really do like the Hearthguard. I like the big units. This individual going 5-0 went with the volume of shots over the plasma. So he's going with volume over quality. And I think that's probably a good choice nowadays, considering that Dev Wounds just means you don't get a save anymore. All those Feel No Pains to mortals don't do anything to these Dev Wound guns.
Sorry, Custodes. You don't have an attachment rule.
They're like, cool. I would prefer you take the AP3 flat 2 damage gun. But me just not getting a save and losing 4 custodians sucks. So, yeah, I mean, and they do solve the problem of you're a little bit slow. Well, when you can teleport in, you don't have to care about being slow. You can make the space, as Brad and I talked about, and then drop in. And you see he's clearly doing that right here. He's making the space with the Sagittar. He's keeping the pressure on from them going around the sides with some Brokir probably walking in out of reserve. And then now that he's made that space, he's dropping into giant units of Hearthguard. Finally, you have your one. I love this. Crawley has played the Land Fortress several times, and it is always hilarious when someone tries to take it down because you never quite can get it all the way down. So he's got one Land Fortress. This is just one. Hey, did you bring elite guys? I'm going to hit you with that flat damage 4. And it just keeps them honest from pushing you in too hard while you have maybe 1 or 2 Hearthguard units in Deep Strike.
It's still durable as shit, too.
Yeah, it's so tough. And you can just use it to say, did you come out? Here's my flat 4 damage. And finally, as I said earlier, you got 3 units of Bikers. This is the best scoring piece that Votaan has, I think. Brad, do you disagree?
No, it's still fast. It also has options. It has shenanigans that you can do, and I think that's important for anything. A lot of times the threat of doing something is a lot of times more powerful than the thing that it actually does.
Yeah. And if you weren't aware why Brad and I are saying that, I know we briefly went over it, but having assault weapons, yes, and your cheap trash that can run around and do actions, being able to advance and do them, awesome. Also, this unit has the ability to just pull off the board and just come in out of reserves later. And since you are already, as we've stated, making this plan of making space around the board, you'll already have the space to walk in and do your secondary. Because they can't just sit in their deployment zone. They have to, move around the sides of the board and then get hit with Hearthguard. Or they try to poke in one direction. Well, that opens up this space on the other side of the board that all your bikes can just walk in, do some actions, do some shots. And this is a unit you can, I would assume most of the time play one a little bit forward so you can go score area denial with it or deploy teleport homers in the center. And then I would have one kind of hanging out in the back board. And I played, to be able to go off into reserves as quick as possible to score things like bind enemy lines or investigate signals because you don't really want to run dwarves backwards. That seems like a recipe to lose. And then one unit kind of playing, just angles where it can, getting some shots, maybe doing, a little bit of a trading piece here and there.
100% on that. Are we ready for the bonus?
Oh, yeah. Brad is so excited about this. I'm letting him take it away.
I mean, a towel list.
Now, hold on. Wait. I do have one thing to preface. At LVO last year, pretty much all of us from DOG were on Tau. Brian, of course, was playing his NIDS, but the rest of us are pretty much on Tau. So Brad does have experience going really fast and shooting really hard.
It made me think, like, after we had a weekend, we played some Tau. Tom played it over that. We've been practicing a lot. Well, Lyle and I have been working on a lot of lists. And I also, because of the fact that we only had 11 units, I wanted to make sure that we had enough stuff in case we didn't get enough questions and interactions. So I wanted to throw this up at the end because holy bejesus, this army does dumb amounts of damage. And I know this is on, we almost split it in a double Votaan Tau thing, like basically updated Tau, because they have so much stuff. This might be the most improved. Is it the best? I don't know if it's the best, but I think they got so many points that it's bonkers Tau. So you basically have Cold Star Kion on 2 commander, goes with 6 crisis suits, probably stays off board. Then you've got Farsight with another 6, and he's the wild card. They either start on board or they can also be off board, depending on what you're playing. Ghost Keel's a lone operative. He's going to go sit on that neutral zone objective. Crude Hound's what Crude Hounds do. 3 Piranhas. Now that they've changed, it's so big for Dark Eldar, for Tau, and a lot of others. Now that they made it so that it's whole, things like Piranhas with a, 3 or 4 inch giant block, basically in a tiny body, are fantastic for move blocking. Also, they've got 2 Secret Misses and a Fusion, which is nuts. So it is a Tau list right in the middle of the Dwarf stream. Then 3 Sky Rays. I would actually put SMSs on those guys, just because I want to shoot indirect. And then they've got the Secret Rack. And then you've got 2 units of Stealth Suits at 60 points. It's just bonkers town. They're so ridiculous. They have 4 deploy, that teleport Homer, so you can do shenanigans. You get 0. It's effectively 0 CP, rapid ingress. And then Tetras might be the most broken thing for the points in the game. Full rerolls with whatever they guide and a marker light. Oh yeah, and there's 7 wounds apiece.
Yeah, I mean, this is a sweet looking list. I know you were so excited about this.
I am though, because we put this to the board and we started rolling stuff and just went, this is so much damage and so much trash. It makes my heart leap with joy. It's like the Grinch on Christmas.
You know, I do have to spoil something here for everybody watching. If you play Brad and he's playing Tau, if you start asking him questions, he'll go, "I'll just shoot you." That's his answer to everything. And that's not a joke. And it's also true, especially with this kind of list that he's making here.
I love KR. I was zoning out of dwarves, now I get fish people. Oh, joy. They're haunting your dreams. But to be fair, I got excited about this, and I want to say the same thing I said in last night's stream on this. I think that everywhere, and I'm really excited to do more, deal with it, because with the change of the data slate, I think that we're going to really do some more deep dives. I'm probably going to put some polls up to see what you guys want us to hit in the next 2 weeks, as far as deal with it and just faction spotlights, basically. So we'll do more of this type of layout, because I'd really like to. I love going over the different factions, and now that we have a lot more faction parity, I'm very excited. I'm actually really excited for 40K right now. Don't care what other people say. One of the guys in the comments went, "I want to order whatever you guys are smoking." Well, I'm smoking life, baby. I'm high on life. I'm doing it. Because I think that there's some serious excitement on some lists. I mean, I was just super pumped to put this in. I was super pumped to talk about the fact that Votaan is relevant. Those guys, like 2 weeks ago, if you brought Votaan, you were basically also going to get whipped in the back afterwards, because that's what you were down with. So you got legit stuff now. Matto coming in. $5 super chat. Miss the stream live, but you should both be ashamed for rating Tau high on the fun power rankings. Clearly in the pocket of big trip time.
I mean, I did say the Riptide was the first model I ever bought. So do with that what you will, Matt.
Yeah, I love this. Carl, look, if I was zoning dwarves, I would let them operate factories for the production of bombs made specifically for Tau within city limits. Oh, Jesus. So, should we put a pull up in Discord? I don't know if that's a thing, I sometimes make things up when I say stuff because I don't know how technology works. It's all magic to me.
We
But
can put it up on the Death or Glory YouTube, and I'm sure Still Frosty would love to help with that. He's an expert at making polls for YouTube channels.
nice. So we're gonna put that up and figure out what you guys want to see in the next 2 weeks, and we'll get some rocking and rolling. So, Sean, where can I find you?
You can find me at Dice with Rice, 40K on YouTube. And if you want to watch me battle with some of the tricks that we're saying, you can find Still Frosty Gaming. That's where Brandon and I do battle reports. We have heard the people, and we're going to do more competitive games. So if you just want to see Brandon, who is probably one of the hardest people to score points against in 40K, battle against me over and over again with crazy lists, then check us out.
And we will be on tomorrow as long as he doesn't abandon me for dogs again. So, and we'll be talking about whatever he's working on, because he is doing all of the modeling and all of the displaying. I guess that's still modeling, isn't it? Or is it just hobbying? I don't know. This painting and modeling thing seems hard. So, but on that note, let's Queens wave it out of here.